I've been talking for 2 years about, and I was the only one talking about this. And now you're hearing more and more and more people talk about the BRICS nations, the unification of all these countries moving against the West.
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia just announced last week, as I've been saying for almost 2 years, they're going to join the BRICS nations. And they just announced at a meeting in South Africa that they will be joining the BRICS nations. This was confirmed by the Crown Prince and by the president of South Africa. And I guess, where do we go? Get used to massive inflation, because without the Saudi and OPEC support, where oil can only be purchased in dollars, we are going to see trillions of dollars held abroad that will no longer have utility, and they will come rushing back to America. And at that point, it's the beginning of the end of the game. For over 40 years, almost 50, our free pass as being the world reserve currency is coming to an end. And these politicians who have no inclination, or maybe they do, maybe they are trying, based upon the stupidity that we continue to see over and over and over and over again, the decisions that are being made by our politicians are almost as if they are trying to create a demolition of this country. China, Japan, they're all dumping. There'll be no buyers. Like I said, who needs a bond paying 2 or 3% with inflation much higher than that? And I think it's only a matter of time before the Saudis and OPEC announce that they are accepting other currencies other than the dollar for their oil. I think the days of easy living gifted to us by the holder, as the holder of the world's reserve currency, are about to come to an end. And what does that mean? That means metals are going to become harder to get than they already are, which seems to me almost impossible. Right now on the London Metals Exchange, the silver held in the vaults is the lowest it's ever been since 2016, when they started keeping these records. The amount of metal coming off of the exchanges is like nothing we've ever seen. In fact, in the month of September alone, there were 45,166,000 ounces of silver taken off the London Metals Exchange. That is about 8,000 ounces more than the entire COMEX registered category has in it. The COMEX registered category, which are the bars that are able to be delivered, has about 38 million ounces in it. That's the amount of silver that the country of India imported in the month of August. This is a situation where, from the top down, but I talked to my contacts around the industry, and it's not just the LBMA that's bleeding dry. It's not just the COMEX that is bleeding dry, where 2 weeks ago or last week, in one day, 5% of all the good delivery gold bars were taken off the COMEX. A month before that, 45% of all the kilo bars, 45%, over 25 million ounces of gold was drained from the COMEX in one day. Who's got this kind of bread? Where is it all going? From the top, the London Metals Exchange, the COMEX, the ETFs, they're all being bled dry. Over 100 million ounces taken out of SLV in the last 4 or 5 months. It's being bled dry, but it's not just here. Shanghai Gold Exchange, record premiums. Dubai, record premiums. All around the world, record premiums. The biggest wholesalers in the world fully sold out of product. I'm talking everything except 1,000-ounce bars and silver shot. Everything gone. Price is a tool of misdirection. I have been saying for a very long time, and I get more shit about this than anything I've ever talked about. And I always say the market's going to define itself by an inability to source product. You get all these people that comment, I can see it on APMEX and SD. I see it. Yeah, you have, but try to get it now. And it's getting worse. It is going to be a real problem. People are waking up to precious metals. And when you realize this, it makes it easy to understand why the biggest money in the world is using the manipulated paper price to drain the shelves when no one else is looking at it. Why isn't the price going up? I just don't get it. Well, imagine what the people who have no interest in metals think. Why would you ever buy that stuff? Well, that's exactly what the big money wants you to think. I'm telling you, I'm telling everyone out there, in the 33 years I've done this, almost 8 billion in sales, I have never, ever, 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 ever seen an environment like we have right now, where getting product is 10 times harder than getting clients. And if you would have ever said that to me, anytime in my career, getting product is harder than getting clients, I'd say, I'll bet you everything I own that won't ever be a problem.
Right.
Until recently, the last couple of years. And now I'm even surprised by just how hard it is to get. So I'll just say one last thing. It's really hard to get retail product. What makes it even more frightening is that you go 2 or 3 levels up and it's all being bled dry. Those 2 or 3 levels up is where everything comes from. Those big bars, that's what you buy to turn into planchets to make coins. If you can't get the big bars and it's being drained from the top, what does that say as it trickles down? It's only going to get worse and worse and worse. What's unique about silver is that it has a duality in demand, where a metal like copper is primarily used in electrical goods and power cables. And so its main use is industrial, whereas silver has that industrial use very similar to copper in terms of its conductivity, but also has a monetary demand that is insatiable. But what you're seeing is, this energy transition as the world shifts to renewable energy, and you're beginning to see copper shortfalls where analysts are warning of massive shortfalls in demand. And so copper buyers are worried about future availability. Well, this is what I think you'll see. And maybe this is why you're seeing the bleed down of silver out of the COMEX and the LBMA. Maybe the smart money, the big money, the people closest to the information, the Elon Musks, the Apples, the Sonys, the Samsungs, all these big corporations, big money, are realizing that there's going to be that moment where getting product or getting silver to make your product will become challenging. That's what you're going to see in silver. It's the same thing. And when you have an environment where the futures market controls the price instead of it being the other way around, where you can have speculators controlling the price rather than the price being a function of the actual physical commodity, this is what happens. You get distortions, and big short positions can get squeezed. But in a world that is moving to green and renewable energy, copper and silver are indispensable, and they're both becoming harder and harder to get. You can only find so much, and you have a problem. That's what we're seeing in copper, and that is undoubtedly what we will see in silver, but much more so because of the duality in demand, not just the absolute need for it in industry, but also the realization and recognition that it might be the most undervalued financial asset on the planet, and one that is actually money and has been for 5,000 years. It's I think, a snapshot of what we can expect to see in silver at some point. So you have all of the countries that are joining, including Saudi Arabia, that are going to join the BRICS nations. You have all 13 of the OPEC producing countries on the Belt Road Initiative. They will issue a currency that will be pegged. Why? Gold is the only other tier 1 reserve asset since 2019.